So guys, this is welcome to Firebase for Web. One meme to kind of get the tension down. So today we'll be creating a simple web app. We're going to use Firebase to authenticate. We're using basically sign up and signing in users. Then we're going to create and read data from firestore. So also we're going to deploy our app to Firebase hosting. As you know, Firebase is secure, fast, secure web hosting, and it's backed by global CDN. So also you can link your custom domain to your Firebase host. So yeah, and then we can get started. So I'm sharing a link for start code, for your starting code. You can check it out and then we can begin. So when you go to the link, you should get this starting code. You can, if you're okay, you can work with Stack Blitz if you're okay. But I'm gonna try to create outside Stack Blitz so that people who don't want to use Stack Blitz can also get to understand how to go about it. Yeah, so I'm gonna create the files that we're gonna use outside Stack Blitz. So the first file is the index.html. Then we're gonna create another one for our script. Then we're gonna create another one for our styles. So styles.css. Then another one for JSON, package.json. So then we're gonna open all of them on Visual Studio Code, sorry. So we're gonna work from this side. From this side, I'll show you how to configure it, but then we're gonna continue on from stack list. And so you can have your project in such a simple format. Then we can get all the code from StackBlitz, copy paste, then go and do a bit of changes. Then you can be good to go if you're not working from StackBlitz. So we're gonna after you've copied copied everything to your local directory project, you can copy all the files, copy the code for the index HTML, for the CSS, and for the scripts. Then now let's make a bit of changes to get you started if you're working from your local directory. So we're gonna add our CSS here, styles.css. I can save that one. And then, okay, since we're working with Firebase, let me show you something. Let me point out something here real quick. So you'll notice in this index.js, you have all these files from this point all the way there. Basically, we have to use, since you're using Firebase, you have to use the dependencies. This is basically adding the dependencies. So on StackBlitz, that's how you add it. But then if you're working on your local directory, you're gonna import them like normal external JS scripts. That's why we made the changes and we removed all of this. So at the bottom of your body, of your app body, you can add here the body tag. So at the bottom, you can add the scripts. Oh, sorry. You can add the scripts, the dependency scripts. So here, so all these are Firebase libraries that we need to use. We'll need to use UI so that when we click a button or when you're calling auth, it will populate your your page with Firebase UI for auth. Also, this is for authentication. The library is for authentication. This one is for the UI, and here that's where it references our Firebase app. So yeah, so this is how you do it for your external scripts, for your for your local project directory. That's how you'll do it. You'll add your CSS, you'll need styles here, your code and body, code under the body, and then here you'll have to import the scripts. Note that you shouldn't do this. Don't do this. Don't don't call your script, your custom script before the Firebase scripts, because it won't work. It loads them can say programmatically, sequentially, sorry. So always put it after you imported all the necessary files. So that's how you do it on your local directory. In the scripts, here you'll add your Firebase configuration, and we can proceed from this one on StackBlitz. So probably you can just have a preview of how this one looks. So I'm using, in order to see my changes, anytime I'm making changes on the code to populate on the browser, I'm using an extension called live server extension. It will help you to see changes when you make them. So we can try to see how this one looks like. So basically, this is how your app looks like when you just you just get all the code from StackBlitz. Of course, when you're doing your app, you'll have to have your custom features. For instance, your app name to be, say, Firebase Meetup, or to be food delivery, whatever. You'll just make your custom changes. So yeah, so now we'll continue from where we are on StackBlitz. Also, you can notice it's on localhost on port 5500, the one that we've just done. So here we are. I'm gonna work with it as it is. So, oh, sorry, I had forgotten to mention, on the link that I sent, when you're getting your starting code, remember to fork it so that it becomes your own project. So now we're gonna edit so that we have our own custom event name. Any suggestions? Okay, so we're gonna change this here. I'm gonna change it to say my first web app. So immediately you do that, you have your changes here. My first web app, then calendar today. We can put today's date, April 3rd. Then here, location city, Nairobi. So everything has changed. So we can change our description to something like what we'll be doing will be learning. Okay, sorry, a day of learning. You can see our changes right here. So once we've known how to edit the information, now we can create and set up our Firebase project that will be our backend for our web app. So just go to a new tab, Firebase. Then can go directly to the console. Make sure you're signed in with your Gmail for that. So we can create a new project and we can call it my app. So right here, this is the ID. Oh, sorry. Unfortunately, I've reached the maximum limit for my app, so I'm gonna do this. Okay, let's just go back to Firebase. So I'll change my account to the one that I use to a different account. Then you can go to console. So yeah, so we can make one here. Sorry about my personal account. Yeah, I've reached the limit of apps I can make, like the project, Firebase project. So I can call this my app. This is your app ID, which you can decide to change to my app if, okay. So I can call it just my first web app. Okay. Oh, sorry, that one's taken. Okay, just to try something different. My app 171, maybe. 178. Okay, let's just work with that one for now. You can always customize it to whatever you want, as long as it's available. It's an available ID. So yeah, then you continue. continue, select an account, use the default account for Firebase, or you can decide to change it. So then you can create a project. So when your app is ready, you can continue. So now this is the dashboard for your Firebase project. You have all these Firebase products over here that you can make use of. So you can authentication, database storage, hosting, cloud functions. Cloud functions come in handy when you don't want to, when you need to create an API and you don't want to have it hosted anywhere else. You can have it hosted on Firebase. So just as you can call your cloud functions with triggers, either HTTP or event triggers. For instance, when you're updating your database, you can create a function that whenever it's updated, you create another field or something like that. So once you've created, we're gonna go right and enable authentication because we'll need authentication for our app. So you just go to sign in method, then enable this one. So we've enabled. For apps that require you to send a code to input a code or whatever, or a code is sent to your phone so that you can authenticate. You can make use of such of the phone authentication. You can authenticate using Firebase, GitHub, Twitter, and so on and so forth. So then we're gonna set up our firestore. We're gonna use firestore for this particular project. So you can use Firestore or real-time database. This one has JSON tree structure for, but this other one stores data in collections. You can assume them to be a file or a page containing information or something like that. So I'm gonna go right ahead and create the database. So we're gonna start in test mode. Something else that we're gonna do during this code lab, we're gonna learn how to create rules for your for Firebase, for your database, and we'll modify that later. So for now, we're gonna start in test mode. The reason why you create rules is so that anyone else so that no one can be able to post unless to uh, make changes to your database unless they are authenticated, or just to enforce security rules. So just gonna go with this one, US Central. Yeah, so we've enabled uh, Cloud Firestore for database. So now we're gonna go right ahead and we're gonna configure. We're gonna add and configure Firebase onto our app. So in order to do that, go back to project overview. Then these icons here allow you to add an app. So you can add a Unity project or web, which you are doing in this case, and you can do Android and you can do iOS. So we're gonna do web. So we're gonna use still my first tab. So I'm not gonna check this for now. We're gonna enable this one later. Now we're gonna register app. So we're gonna use still my first app. So you add the scripts at the bottom of your body tag. That's why when we were beginning, I was telling you to import your scripts at the bottom of the body tag. So we're gonna take this one. We're gonna take the Firebase configuration and Firebase that initialize our app. So we're gonna go back to stack pleats. I'll go to index.js. Then here we're gonna add our configuration here. So you add your configuration so we can get rid of this one. So once that is done, we can go ahead and try to add our user sign-in. But before that, in case you missed this step and you continue to console, you can always go to my first app. Sorry. Your project settings. See my first app. If you had configured Android, you'd see here the Android name of the name of your Android app. Sorry. So then you can get your configuration here. So let's go ahead and try to add user signing. So we're gonna uncomment that one so that we initialize the widget. And then we're going to add a RSVP button or our sign-in button right here. So we're gonna do a button. Gonna give it an ID. You can name it whatever ID you want, but I'll just call it start RSVP. And gonna name it RSVP also. I'm gonna close the tag. So let's see how it looks on this other side. So this here is our button. So what you want when you click this button, if you're signed in, you go ahead and RSVP. But if you're not signed in, it gives you an option to sign in or sign up. So that's what you're gonna do next. So go back to your JS file. Here, I'm gonna do a function. Gonna call it. Okay, sorry. Up here, we see the start RSVP ID is being called and is being assigned to that variable, that constant, sorry. So we're gonna do this. Then we are gonna assign an event listener. Gonna add an event listener. And it's gonna be click. And then what it does we call pointed towards a function that we want it to do. So we want it to use UI, start, we're going to start our auth container, which is the Firebase UI auth container. Firebase UI dash auth, sorry, auth dash container. Okay. Having an error here. So we're going to try to fix that error. Or add event listener. Start RSVP button. Start RSVP. What is our ID this side? Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's our problem. Yeah. Make sure you reference your ID correctly. So we're going to change that to that, and then we're going to see how it looks. So everything is fixed. So let's see what will happen when we click on RSVP. So nothing yet. Let's see here. Okay, okay. Oh, sorry. We're supposed to have something else here, which is UI config. Sorry about that. Now let's see. Yeah, it works now. Now you are all set, so you can authenticate your users now. I'm gonna try, okay, let me put this on a new tab. Yeah, so this is how our first web app looks like. So when you click on RSVP, you have sign in with email. So I'm gonna I will use my email to test whether it's working. First name Jilks, last name Smith. Choose my password. I'm definitely gonna forget that one, so I'm gonna use my own custom password. So let's check whether it works. So you can go back to your Firebase, your app setting, your app, then go to authentication, then go to users. Then you can see I've already been created as a new user. So it's working. But now we have to modify that so that whenever the button is clicked, when the user, it automatically signs you in after sign up. And if you're already signed in, it shows you a logout. So we're gonna go back to our code here. Then we're gonna change this one. So here, I'm gonna do an if function, and if firebase.out Sorry, I got a bit distracted with the text over there for a moment. And we're gonna check current user, whether the current user is logged in. So here you'll do whatever you want. So the user is signed in, so it allows users to sign out. So if you have the current user signed in, you can allow the user to sign out. That's one of the basic things in sorry. So we're gonna do check firebase.auth, and we're gonna do sign out. Sign in options, but now I want sign out. So then we're gonna do an else here. So UI dot start. Oh, yeah. Rather than going through all that, let me just copy this. I'm gonna save the changes. So let's see what we've done. So you can RSVP. I'm signing in with my email address. What was my password? I signed in, but it hasn't made changes to the RSVP. So I want it to change to show to allow the user to log out. I'm gonna make some more modifications. Forgot to tell you something. So here we're gonna do something I'd forgotten. So Firebase. So we're gonna check whether the user is signed in or not. That's what we had forgotten to put in. So our start RSVP button, we're gonna change its text content. And we're gonna change it to, yeah, let's allow the user to log out. Else, that if the user is not logged in, the button remains the same. Let's move this one. Okay. Let's see. On state changed. Sorry, that's why I'm getting the error here. Oh, sorry, my caps lock's on. So then let's see whether it has made any difference. So we sign in again. And we are good to go. Now we are set. We have our logout button. So this can apply to any feature you're trying to implement. If you have the user signed in, to show the logout button. If the user is not signed in, then you show the sign in button, which is what we've done here. Basically here, we've checked whether the user, we check here whether the user is logged in. If it's not logged in, we just change the text of our button to log out, and then what it will do is it will check whether when you click on the button, it will check whether the user is signed in. If not, allow the user to sign in, or if the user is signed in, to sign out the user. So I'm gonna log myself out. So the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna write messages to Cloud Firestore. We're gonna put data in our database. Sorry. So we're gonna do this by creating a form that will allow a user to post data onto our database. So in this section here, the ID guest book container, we're gonna make some changes. So first we can give it content. So the first header, call it discussion. And then we're creating the form now that will allow a user to enter data. I'm gonna call this leave message. So we're gonna put our fields now. The label. So the label is leave message. You can call it anything you want. You can call it, let us know how you think. Yeah. Then we're gonna put our input field. Of course, type is gonna be text. Then the ID is message. Then we're gonna we'll have a submit button here. Submit, and inside you can customize the button however you want. You can put an icon. You can put a progress bar. So I'm gonna put an icon here. So material icons. And the material icon which we're gonna use is going to be send material icon. And then gonna put a closing tag. So let's see how our changes look like. We have leave a message with our send button. Okay, so we have our input field. So now we should be able to get its data and send it to our database. So there's something I haven't done quite right. Okay, everything looks good. Sorry, I've forgotten one thing. That's why we're not getting our icon. Our icon is not showing. I think I got this wrong. So, material icons. So should be having our icon there. So when we are posting data to our firestore, we don't want to know who is posting, and the best way to reference a user is user ID. So what you're gonna do, we're going to get the user ID of our current signed in user. So we're gonna do this. So from our form, gonna add an event listener. We submit. Our event is submit, so I'm gonna use submit. Then so we're gonna prevent our page from reloading every time a user clicks the submit button. So we're gonna prevent default. Sorry, I made a mistake. I'm gonna prevent. Then we're gonna now try to send our data. So we're gonna do Firebase. That firestore. That collection. And our collection is the name of in an SQL relating it to SQL for easy understanding. Can call it this is the name of our table. Then we're gonna add it. And then this is what we're going to add. We're going to add text, which is our input value. The other thing we're going to add, we can add a time or date. So timestamp. So we get the current date. And then the name that we are going to use. We're gonna put our user's name, which is auth. Of course, we're going to be getting the current user. Then we're going to their name. And then we're gonna add in ID or user ID. I'm just going to copy this one. User ID. And this is what should be added to our database. So, and then the next thing we're going to do, since we want a new, a blank input field, so we're gonna clear the message on our input. Input.value empty, and then return false. So the next thing we're going to do, we want to show the guestbook only to signed in users. So in order to show the guestbook to signed in users, you come to on auth state changed function that we had before. Then what we'll do, if the user is signed in here, we'll show them the guestbook container. Sorry, I had forgotten to mention something here. Our guestbook container is referenced to our guestbook container. So when you go through the code, so bear in mind these things that were initialized before. So our guestbook container, we're going to display it now. Dot display, and we're going to display it in block. Else, if the user is not signed in, we don't show them the guestbook. And here we'll put it to none. So let's see whether it shows. Let's test what we've done so far. It's always good to test as you could, and so that you can know the bugs early. So let's try to RSVP again. It shows our guest book here. So it shows it here. So we're gonna try to send a message to firestore. So we're gonna say leave a message. I am happy. I'm excited rather for the event. Let's see whether it will make a difference. Let's go back. Let's go to our app on Firebase. Then go to database. And let's see whether we have anything added. So we have our guest book. It has already added. Let's see whether it loads. Then it has a document. So like I was saying earlier, Firestore stores data in sort of a document kind of storage. So you have your table. You can call this your table, although it's really a collection. So just relating it to SQL because it's easier to relate from SQL so that you can understand better. So you have your guest book, and then you have this what has been added, and this is our user ID, the text that we've added, and the name of the person who sent the message. So then we can go back to, like we've seen that works. Now we should be able to read all this and populate it back to our app. So to read our messages, we're going to add something onto our guestbook container. We add something here, guestbook container here, underneath the form. So we're going to add a section, and we're going to give it the ID guestbook. So this is why we want to populate our data from Firestore. So we're gonna use this ID. So we come back here. We're gonna do a query. We're gonna do a query to select the message and populate it. So of course we are getting it from Firestore, and our collection is guestbook. Our collection is this one, guestbook. And then we're going to get the data. We're going to order it by the timestamp field. Then once we order, we get this is our query. Then we get it the snapshot of the data. Then we put it in. You can call this one snaps. The function. Okay, we'll try to reset the page first. So get guest book in a HTML. To be that, this is to reset the page, and then we want to loop through the documents in our database. So we do snaps dot for each, and what are we looping through? We're looping through for each document. what do we do when we look through the documents? So we put a constant here, entry, which we will get, we'll do document dot create element, and the element you're creating is a paragraph. So we create a paragraph, and then for that paragraph, we put our text. So we get this data, the document that we look through all the documents. And then we get data, and then we put we get the data, the name. So yeah, this is our data, then this is our field name. Okay, so this is our field name. And then we're gonna do this just for styling so that it can be easily readable. And then we add doc data text. And our guest book. Guest book, so not container, but guest book. We append child, which is our entry here. We're done. So we're gonna try. So what we've done, we invoke firestore, and which collection are we getting from? We're getting from the guest book collection, and then we order by timestamp. So in other instances, you might want to order by the ID of the document, or by user ID, or by, but most conveniently is timestamp, so that you can get them in an order, in a chronological order from the latest to the oldest. So we go back to here, try to refresh the page. Okay, got it. Okay, let's see what's going on this other side. Let's try to RSVP. Let's leave a message and send. Let's see how it will cancel. Let's see what we've done wrong, that it's not displaying any message. The ID is guest book. Guest book. Guest book. So in our guest book, we give it 0, none, null value. Then we look for each document, and then we create an element and the data. Let me try and see what's wrong. Okay, what have we done wrong? First, let's try sending data again, try to see whether it will populate. I think I may be calling the wrong thing. Collections guest. And it may have done something wrong here. So problem here. And then come back here. And set fast to our problem comes here. We referenced there was a typo in timestamp. It's timestamp. Sorry about that. Then we need to change this one to timestamp. Then we'll leave another message. And then here we go. So when we are referencing the element, the field that we are ordering by, I had written stamp instead of stamp. And that's why it was not populating the data. So there you go. That's how you populate the data you want from Firestore. So the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna try to set up a few security rules for our database. I'll show you how to go about that. So you still on your database collection, then you go to rules. So on this rule allows anyone on the internet to view, edit, or delete data in your database, but you don't want that. You want your database to be secure. So we're gonna modify the allow read and allow write and change it to we're gonna change it so that we can only have our users being able to reference. So the rule we are going to add here. So let's get rid of those statements. Just do that. So allow sorry, before we do that, here we have our database and our documents. So we'll add something small, something really tiny. I'm going to add much. Guest book. And the entry. And then we're going to allow read. We're going to allow it only if the request dot auth ID, the user ID is not null. And the only way for someone to post to your database is by logging in and sending and by logging in so that they can be able to post. And by logging in, it creates an auth instance which has an ID, and then that's what we'll be referencing here. If the user ID is null, then we won't allow read. Neither will we allow write. Allow write only if the request, the auth, the ID, request and resource data dot user ID. Request resource data user ID. If only if the request and the resource and the data that has been sent, the user ID is equivalent to the request auth dot user ID dot UID. Only if they are equal. We only allow the write to happen if the current user ID matches the data that is being sent, the user ID data that is being sent. So that's one rule. So you can always add other rules. To secure your database further, or you can have other rules so that you have a particular request modifying only a particular part of your database and not given access to the entire database. So we can also decide to add more to strengthen it even further by checking whether the data that is being sent, the name that has been sent, in the request. Sorry, dot resource. Also, we can strengthen it even further by adding, let me copy this. Then we change this one to the text that's being signed if it's equal to, and text whether it's in the data that's being sent. Also, we can copy that one, and then we can put timestamp. Remember not to do timestamp. So we've modified the default rules and we've set them to this one. So we cannot have a read if we don't have a user ID. So the next thing we're going to do, we want to create listeners. So we want to create listeners because the app only allows authenticated users to log in. You can move the guest book, the query inside the authentication listener. Otherwise, permissions errors will occur and the app will be disconnected when the user logs out. So that's what we're going to do here. Very quick. So don't always publish your rules. So we go back to we create a function here that is subscribes to our guest book. Subscribe. Guest book. I don't have any parameters. So we create a query. The query that we had created earlier. So we can just copy paste this query inside that function. We put our query there. And then we create another function to unsubscribe for unsubscribing guest book. So we can copy that one, paste it there. And you can add unsubscribe guest book. And then we check if our guest book listener. Oh shit, what have I done? Our guest book listener that was defined here earlier. We have our guest book listener here. If it's not null, what we want to do, we call our guest book listener. And then we still get our guest book listener and assign it to null. So when we check our authentication listener, our on state changed listener here, and we add our guest book. We subscribe to the guest book now. Here we subscribe to the guest book function, and then whenever there is nothing, the user is not signed in, you can subscribe. So we've basically created the rules. We've added our listener. We can try this again. A new message this time. Stay safe. And it subscribes. Whenever you log out, nothing is being shown. So last and final, sorry, not the last one. We've created a basic web app that allows a user to make comments about the event and RSVP. So the next thing we do, we want to go live. So we'll try and deploy our web app to Firebase hosting. So to deploy your app to Firebase hosting, first of all, you can configure Firebase hosting on Firebase. So you go to hosting. So I'll show you one step before I go to that. Remember I started with creating a local, when you're creating a local project. So when you're creating a local project, if you want to deploy to Firebase, you'll do something like this. So inside the directory of your local project, what you'll do is you initialize your Firebase project. So you can do Firebase init, but you have to install Firebase command line, which I had previously done. So you just do Firebase init, and then you can set up whether it's hosting, storage, or cloud functions. So you can select, you select hosting. Then you can use an existing project or a new project. Yeah, and when you install CLI for the first time, it will ask you whether you before you initialize your project to log in, and yeah, once you get through the login, then you can go ahead and initialize your project, which is create a new project, add an existing to a Google Cloud Platform project. When you're using cloud functions, just to put it out there, when using cloud functions on Firebase, it's more or less linked to Google Cloud Platform. So you can check the performance or the stats or analytics of your cloud functions on Google Cloud Platform, or you can still check them from Firebase. They are connected. So that's how you work your way out to deploy. Okay, I'm gonna stop that one. Then we'll go back to setting up to deploying to Google Cloud, to Firebase. Sorry about that. So what you do next, you can sign into GitHub. So you authorize, you sign into GitHub. If you don't have an account, you can create one, the same email address you used to sign in with Facebook. Sorry, Firebase. So you can authorize that one. So you're signed in. You have it signed in. Once you sign in, so, Firebase should be already. Just a minute. You should be able to see Firebase icon once you log in or decide to deploy. So make sure when you started, you forked the project. Sorry, my screen is off. So make sure when you started, you forked the project so that it's yours, and then there's an icon here. After you when you fork the project, it should ask you to sign into Google. So I'll use this account because it's the one that I used with the Firebase account. And then I'll allow. You can see everything changed because I hadn't forked before. So then I'll choose a project, which in this case, this was the project. And then you're ready to deploy and you click on deploy. So once you deploy, it gives you the option to open the site live. So you can open the site live and it should be able to populate. So when you go to Firebase hosting and refresh the page, then you'll see the changes. The dashboard. As you can see here, you have the app deployed, the stats, and here you can add your own custom domain. So if you had made your own custom domain, you just link it here. So you can, after you build, you can share the domain with your friends and see what you made. Yeah, so you can go forth and practice everything that you've learned and build awesome web apps. So just a summary of what we've done. We've configured auth, we've linked our project to Firebase, we've deployed, and we've also configured Firestore. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Just a minute, I'm trying to set up. Yeah, thank you so much, Smith, for taking your time to take us through the processes. I'll just, and also for for the presentation. Personally, I enjoyed it. Like you explained it from your explanations were very detailed and step to step. Even for a beginner, they'll be able to understand each and everything that you explained, from deploying and integrating as well with Firebase. So we'll just take a couple of questions from Tabby before maybe we get back to you. So Tabitha, are there any questions on the side?
Yeah, okay, we have a couple of questions from the audience. Let me just read them out. Hold on a minute. Okay. Give me a minute to just check it out. So yeah, as I wait, my name is Tabitha Kavu, Developer Students Club Lead, University of Nairobi. Yeah, and I'm glad to be part of this amazing organizing team that is behind the whole Firebase Study Jam. Yeah, and so the question that we have from the audience, it's probably off topic, but someone is asking, what's the main difference between Firebase real-time database and CloudStore, and why should I use either of them? So over to you, Smith.
So for the difference between Cloud Firestore and real-time database, the difference is in their structure. For Cloud Firestore, it stores data in collections. You have in a document format collections, but for the real-time DB, it stores data as JSON file in a JSON structure manner.
Okay. The next question, we generated a timestamp from the client end, so it seems risky for a highly interactive app in Firestore. Is there auto-generation of the timestamp, and if so, how?
So one way to fix that, you'd create your cloud functions. You'd create your cloud functions, which will be triggered when you update your database. So once the cloud function is triggered, it can update the field that you want for timestamp with the current timestamp from your backend. That's how you can go about it.
Yeah, so there's another question. Do you have a sample code for this session? I mean, probably if you have, maybe you can share your GitHub account if possible. And then someone else is asking, do you need to sign in to Stack, the link that you provided? Is it paid?
No, Stack, for the link that I provided, no, it's not paid for. It's free. You don't need to sign up. You only need to do is just fork. So if you want the code, you can just fork it from StackBlitz, then you can get started.
Yeah, okay. So while you're using test mode or you've written the Firebase security rules to secure a database, is it necessary to do all that?
Yeah, it's necessary to secure your database. We started out in the test mode, which allowed users to write regardless of whether they are signed in or not, which is a bit risky for your database. You'll have anyone posting, updating, or deleting, or just modifying your database. So the rules are there to enforce security. And as we were going through the session, the bit of writing the rules, don't forget to always publish the rules. From an experience, I forgot to publish the rules. Then I came back and I was like, oh, why didn't it change? Then I remembered I hadn't published the rules. So the rules are quite important.
Or can you change the location of cloud files too?
You can change it to the options that are there. There is US Central, the regions, the multiple regions that are there. You can choose whichever that you want.
Okay.
But you can't change it after you've created the database, though. You have to change it initially before creating the database.
Okay. So lastly, on Firestore, is there a way to enforce the data structure? That is, for instance, always ensure when you're adding messages, a timestamp is provided.
The way to custom do that is, okay, my way of doing it is through cloud functions. So you can create a timestamp for all the fields that you want through cloud functions. And they could be triggered when, for instance, when we were adding the message. Once it hits the database, it triggers the function. The function then updates the database.
Okay, thank you so much, Smith. Those are the questions we have at the moment. Yeah, so for the guys who are asking about the code, you can just go to the link that was shared, and then you can fork and you can proceed from there. So thank you so much for your time.
No.
Okay, okay, great. Thanks, Tabby. Also for the questions. Yeah, again, Smith, today was an amazing session, even for a beginner, for the questions that have just come in. Most of the people are so interested in them. Most of the people are so curious to learn much about them. So maybe you'll also share your Twitter handle, and then we'll be directing some of the questions directly to you. And yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, and also thank you for having this session with us today. So yesterday we also had a session for those who just came in. Yesterday we had a session with Bami from GDG Lagos on the introduction to Firebase, and how her journey through Firebase. So you can also check it out and see and learn from it as well. So for any more questions, just feel free to share with us on Slido, and then we'll be able to answer most of them. Yeah.
I have one
Also,
question.
okay, sure.
Yes, so why do most companies prefer SQL than NoSQL, like Firebase, etc.? Because they claim NoSQL can store large data. I mean, is that the reason why most companies prefer SQL than NoSQL?
It depends. Okay, it depends with your application. So, for instance, you do want to use SQL for, or rather, let me put it this way: SQL versus NoSQL depends. But most of the time, you find that NoSQL is efficient and faster, in as much as it has redundancy in repeating the data. It's still faster than SQL. So you'll choose NoSQL if you want if you want to faster response, faster queries, as compared to SQL.
Yes, thank you.
Great. So as I was sharing before, so some of the questions, we'll just ask the participants to share directly to you, Smith, and then you'll be able to answer and also be able to give your feedback on the same. Otherwise, we really appreciate for taking your time to join us in today's session on on how to integrate with Firebase, and also as well as to take us through the whole processes. So again, I want to, just to shout out to some of the participants who stayed with us throughout the whole process, and also I believe they didn't, since we had 19 we had so many participants in the beginning, but then some, because maybe some couldn't stay through to the end of it, they dropped off. But then a big shout out to those who stayed and those who asked questions, and also those who participated, like Johnny Rungu, Jeremiah Kuria, Alex Gashanja, Mesa, Paul, Wade. You guys, thank you so much for staying with us through the end, and also for asking amazing questions. So also feel free to also tweet about this particular session on Twitter, and also talk about it on Facebook. Let your friends, let guys who didn't know about it be able to learn from it as well. So you can use hashtag Firebase Study Jam, as well as hashtag Nairobi, and you can use GDG Twitter handle, which is at GDG Nairobi. So again, Santini, thank you so much for coming. I wanted to say Santini and then I missed it, but thank you so much for being part of this particular session, and also for joining us today. I'm trying to see if there's anything else left. Yeah, so I believe that's it for today. Yeah, that's it for today. And yes, we'll be sure to share about, in case we'll be having a session tomorrow, and also in the next sessions we'll be having online from GDG Nairobi. Otherwise, you all have a lovely evening, and be sure to take care of yourself, be sure to stay safe, and be sure to also stay at home. Yeah, so have fun, and make good use of this time. Use the available resources, learn how to code using Firebase, learn any new program or project, and have fun during this period. Yeah, so cheers and bye. I was your host for the day, Irene Onyango. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah, bye, Smith.
Bye, Irene.